Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday night segment of The Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM from New Orleans. And we're also on Roku. So check us out from the comfort of your boudoir, your living room, wherever the case may be, but check us out nonetheless. We are fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee, who have been a part of the Outer Realm journey since day one. So we thank you very much, Folgers. We appreciate you so much. Also, big thank you to Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, aka Justin Snicker, for his contribution of his time, his music, his voice for our intro and outro. He's an award-winning composer of Halloween horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, which can be found anywhere that good music can be found. Also, big thank you to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind the artwork and the logos here at the Outer Realm. So you can find him on Instagram and Facebook. Big thank you to him as well. And tonight, you have little old us on a Q&A because Susie Hansen had a really, pretty major family situation come up. So Amelia and I want to wish her the very best and hope that she and her family can get through this really quickly so we can bring her on, get her rescheduled, and get back to basics. So we hope that everything is okay.
Yeah.
So
family first. How are you?
Oh, Lord, no. Don't get me started.
Oh my God, my internet is going in and out. I've said like this is a good topper to the damn week, and it's only Wednesday.
It's only Wednesday. That's the best part.
Yes.
Wednesday, and the chaos is here, which might be really good for, I think, kind of a little bit of the topic that we're having. Because boy,
or
I've
chaos
had
magician.
We've had a week. We've had a week, and it doesn't seem to be clearing up a little bit. It just seems to be picking up speed, if anything. But we have some people chiming in. We've got Wayne still suffering.
I'm sorry, Wayne.
Yeah,
I was hoping you'd be better by now. That's a rough one.
No. And hi, Tamara. Hi, Doreen. Yeah, it's been like, that's what I'm saying. It's just been really like interesting and having to, deal with things that shouldn't have to deal with.
Yeah. And when it rains, it pours. There really is something to that. When we got the horrible news, and I'm keeping her and her family in our thoughts and prayers. I was scrolling through Facebook and I said to Michelle, I really need to talk about this because I feel like people, some understand the connection and some don't.
Mm-hmm.
If you believe in energy and you believe in a collectiveness and that energy combined together can change and move things, then you also have to understand that when you're posting things on social media, and I'm happy for anyone who does really well in life. You notice, hi Sam, you notice Michelle and I don't post very much personal stuff on social media. And for me, there's a reason. I'm speaking for myself, and Michelle's here. She can speak for herself. When you post things and you share your accomplishments, which are fantastic when you're within your own circle. But when you share things on a bigger thing, you can get into that little corner that can just back you up with the energy of what the Italians call malocchio, or, the evil eye kind of thing. And I used to think my mother was silly talking about this. And she used to say to me, always stay humble, always stay humble. And I just thought she meant don't be a show off. you know. And I think you have to be careful with posting your children's photos for the obvious reasons. We just saw that in Toronto, a 31-year-old man who is actually from a neighborhood stone's throw away from where I grew up, who was just charged with 100 charges so far of child molestation online. Youngest one, 7 years old. And he found them in children's groups and on Facebook. And and my sister-in-law actually worked at the school as a secretary that he went to. Like, this is how close this is. But anyways, when I say be careful what you post with your children, other than the criminal sense, I mean it in a sense that not everybody wishes you well.
Mm.
Just be careful. Where if you're watching us right now, you're interested in this field, which means you've probably dabbled, or you want to dabble, or you understand how energy works. And sometimes it could bite you in the behind.
That's true.
Like, you have to be really careful. Like, there's certain things that I will share with my daughter because she is a public person, and that's the only reason why. But when she was younger, I didn't share things. And it's not because I work with missing children. It's not just because of that. It's because I like to keep her life private. It's her life. And I always think of what my mom used to say to me. Don't bring it up. Don't show off. In the sense, like, you got a new car, that's great. Just be careful. Not everybody is happy for you.
Mm.
And you just never know which way it's going to hit you.
Mm-hmm.
So with that said, Michelle would tell you grounding is the biggest tool here.
Yeah, for us, when we've recommended it to really swear by it. So there's definitely something to it.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I just think you have to be careful who you let in on social media for the obvious reasons and for the not so obvious, because we really don't think of those that don't wish us well. That negative energy is coming towards us or the person that we're posting the photo of. And it's scary. Like, I went through it with someone who I thought was a friend, a longtime friend, and, going through everything that we went through with my daughter, not a word. And I'm like, my automatic response was shields up, bang, out. But not everybody can do that, and not everybody understands that. So I think the small step is to just be careful who your audience is. I'm not saying don't post things. I'm just saying be careful, limit your audience on your posts, and post them for the people who really, really are happy for you. So this way, it just kind of eliminates that straggly negative crap that can come around you, and if you're down, can affect you in a huge way.
It's really tough because with social media, your life becomes an open book. I don't post because I've been a public figure for 20 years, and it's been very important to me to keep my private life private, my family private, and realistically, it's when you're going through whatever it is you're going through, it's up to you. Some people find it very therapeutic. They
Yes.
want to vent, and they want people to, they want the opinions of others, and maybe it
That's
helps
okay.
them in a way. And for me, I'm just not personally one of those people. I
No.
try to give as much about myself in interviews and things like that, and I've always felt it was enough because I'm very forthcoming with information and such. And not everybody's your biggest fan for sure, and I think it has its place, and I think that you really have to be careful as well. I completely agree with you on that.
I worry about it so much, and especially after that thing that came out with that monster in Toronto. He was lifting children's photos off of Facebook posts, and he was in chat groups and Facebook groups and social media platforms where other children were posing as a child, and he would take their photos and use them in child pornography and sell it. This is what's going on. If you have to read it. So be careful when you're posting pictures of, let's say, your child in a bathtub. You might not want everybody to see that. And if you have your settings to friends of friends, when you're sharing an accomplishment, I'm really happy for you. Michelle's going to be really happy for you. That's who we are, but not everybody is.
Mm.
And I always think how far like someone will go if they're just in a crappy mood and they can play with that kind of energy. It's kind of scary. There's a reason why you go back ancient times, medieval times before that, where people were always deflecting negative energy. There's a reason for it. There's a reason why it's still there today, because it's real.
I think they had a better understanding of how energy worked. Like, let's talk about the collective consciousness, just to start there, okay?
Yeah.
I've done some experiments with this because I find it fascinating personally that this
Yeah.
is a thing and you could put things out there and people would not even realize it. And I would do things like, for example, I'm going to come up with a really obscure word. I think I've talked about this before. So I'd say something like swell.
Yes, we
'Cause
went
nobody
through that
says
for a while.
swell
It drove me
anymore.
crazy, of all
Yeah, like
words.
seriously, who the heck
Swell.
uses that word, right?
Well, I
So-
guess we're after you came up with it. It's like, what
so
the
I
hell
started
did
saying
you just start?
so well.
Mhm.
Next thing you know, like within the week, I cannot tell you how many times I've either seen it in print, heard it on television, or heard people saying it. And I'm thinking, now that's interesting. So
Oh, yeah.
I would come up with some other, another word like groovy, like you use that one. And how many times all of a sudden it's like it catches on and you see people start to use it.
Yeah,
So
like a
it's like
tulpa.
there's something with that, all right?
Yeah.
There's something to it. So, we do a lot of energy work, and I do energy work with Bart Sharp, who has a show here on the network.
We love
And
Bart. Yes.
yeah, and we do a lot of stuff with the collective consciousness itself because we believe by instilling positive vibrations and putting things out there that maybe people will start to pay it forward. They'll start waking up a little happier. Like, if you see me, I post a lot more on Instagram, people, than I do on Facebook. I just do.
Yeah.
And it's always things with what I choose to do is
Mhm.
I'll put some funny things. I'll put some, oh, hey, look at this cool thing, like,
Yeah,
like
that's why I
abandoned
like
place, or
Instagram.
yeah, you just mix it up. And
Yeah.
I choose to try, God's sakes, I choose just to try to give people, hoping if this is the first thing you see today, I hope it makes you smile. I hope it's inspirational. I hope it makes you laugh.
Mhm.
It's always my intention to try to put something like that. And in the back of my mind, I always think to myself, oh, I hope it doesn't offend somebody, because it's the last thing I want to do. I don't put political stuff. I posted something at one time and somebody goes, that's political. It's this. I'm like, it's never my intention. Have you ever heard me talk
I've
politics?
been
And all the
posting
years you know
political
me?
stuff, but that's only because here in Canada, we're all on one side right now for the first time
I
ever.
know. It's like, woo. But
That's the
that's
only
something, and I'm
reason.
not even in the same country. So I don't care about your politics. I
No.
don't care about politics on average. For me, there's no place for it in my public life.
No,
Not that I don't have a thing or two to say in private, but that's where it stays.
it's not the
So
field.
by putting something out there every single day, a positive thought, a positive message, that's what my hope is, that it will make its way through the collective consciousness, because I see over the last few years, and with great reason. I mean, different times, people have had losses, people are still having losses, and there's just so much of that going into the collective consciousness, and you see it. You
Bless
see it
you. Yes.
in your surroundings. You see it. You see people are angry when they're shopping, like, you're not following the arrow. I'm like,
I think they
okay.
watch too much TikTok. That's all I'm going to say.
But that's to me, that's just my thought on
Well,
that thing.
there's an algorithm with social media. So there's a lot of science to back your negative attitude.
Mhm.
When you start liking or spending more time on a video, whether it's TikTok, Instagram posts, Facebook, Twitter, it doesn't matter. It times you and it puts you on an algorithm to continually see,
Right.
especially if you hit like or comment, to continually see types of videos like that or types of posts that way. So if you are posting are watching these posts about drama, political harshness, the whole thing that happened 3 years ago, you continually watch that stuff, it puts you in a negative state, which then ripple effect in a huge freaking way right now. Because I'm finding what's happening is people are working behind the keyboard and take that same attitude with them in public now. There's not even...
I know.
So you have to kind of deflect. So what I encourage is, if you are a TikTok junkie like me who likes to see the Italian grandmothers cook, that's me, the babies, the horsies. Did you see the horsey that did the snow angel? I mean,
cute.
come on.
It's like
Those
a big
are,
puppy.
yeah, right?
Yeah.
Those are the
Right,
things
right.
that make me happy, make me laugh, and boost up my serotonin so I don't have to continually take meds, to deal with just what's life, period. But if you hit like on those, you'll get more of those. If you spend more time reading these positive posts, which I find that Instagram pretty much is a place of positivity. It really isn't very negative.
No.
And
exactly.
we're not here to talk about social media platforms. What I'm trying to say is, it will affect your energy, which will then affect your mood, which will affect the mood of everyone around you. And it just keeps going. So how about, remember that whole pay it forward thing? The movie was incredible.
Yeah,
the
it was
story
great
was
movie.
real, and it was true. And it was, bless you. Versace's got like sneezes today.
I'll just post things up as you're talking.
Yeah, no
so you
problem.
Don't have to,
No problem. So
yeah.
the way pay it forward works is, you do something for someone without expectation, or someone does something for you. Like I'm always buying coffee for the person behind me if I can. Not everybody can do that, but there's other ways that you can do things. You can do things by being kind, by holding a door. I don't think anyone holds doors for people anymore, and I think it's really sad. But things like that change the way we behave collectively.
Yeah.
Get it, guys? Collectively.
I agree. I agree.
So if we're kind, you think about our parents' generation growing up, the manners that they had. Do you remember how pleasant people were? I mean, Canada's a pretty kind, we really are that stereotype, but it's getting nasty here too. It's getting nasty here too.
Yeah.
So,
it sure has been.
I think people should start using the pay it forward in Toronto Pearson Airport. I'm just saying. But I'm seeing a lot of crap on there. But when you constantly subject yourself to that negative energy, you're going to be that way in your life, and it's just going to spread.
It's the law of attraction. You put it out, it comes back to you. For 20 years, just about, I've helped people, I've dealt with people, I've done events, and people would say, well, I want to pay for that. I'm like, no, I don't accept that. It's bad juju, and they're just like, well, I don't feel right. And I'm like, you know what? Pay it forward. I don't care if you smile at somebody, you want to donate to your favorite charity, you want to just help somebody else. And it was always interesting because some of the people I've helped have gone on to start their own groups, and they've helped other people.
See?
It was always something I would say, just pay it forward to someone else.
Yeah. And if you don't, then you don't. That's you. And like Michelle said, pay it forward, law of attraction.
Exactly.
I did the same with the readings that I do for bereaved parents. Like, I don't do readings. I'm not that person. I could never take money for readings. I could never do readings. I'm not saying I wasn't good at readings. It's just when a message comes to me, I pass it on because I do different work with Michelle. It's just a different thing. And I think mediums are fantastic. In psychics, they give so much closure and peace to so many people. What I would do, and this is only because I can, not everyone can do this. Some people need it as a means of a living, a wage. It's different. But what I would do is, when they wanted to pay me and I wouldn't take money, especially bereaved parents, I could never take a cent for helping any child or helping any, in any criminal case, unless the station's paying me. It's not happening. I would never take it from a family. So what I would do is just ask them to donate to Sick Kids Hospital. because my daughter was part of that. And I'd be
Mhm.
like, well, if you donate there or if you prefer somewhere else, just focus it on children, please. I'd love that.
Right.
And then they would message me and say, oh my God, I made them donation for you and blah, blah, blah. And this way they do what they can afford. And they feel
That's
good
it.
about it too.
That's it, because some people feel, that no, I don't want to just do this. I I can't afford anything. I'm like, good,
Yeah.
because you don't have to,
No.
But
No, I don't
I
care
don't
if
know.
you gave $5 and you put it in your child's name
Yeah.
that I just connected you with. That's the greatest thing for me,
Right. Right.
So I'm good with that. And
No, I agree. I
I like
agree.
that Kira does that once in a while. You can't always buy coffee for the person behind you. I mean, let's get real,
I do it a
right? We're
lot
not the
too.
Rockefellers, but
Yeah, I know.
when you can do it once in
Yeah.
a while. I mean, I was at a famous coffee house I won't mention because they're not our sponsors.
That's
And
right.
it surprised me because how many times I've done it. And this time it happened to me, and I was so caught off guard because I'm always the one giving, and I was
Do it.
so
Yeah.
shocked. So
Yeah.
I made sure to get the person behind me.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, and I'm hoping that it continued that day because it was really nice. And she's like, "No, I've got you, darling," and I'm like, "Wow, that's so sweet," because that's a pricey joint. But anyways,
I know. It does. It
that
gets
was
very
really, really
pricey.
nice. I
Yes.
wish I could go into supermarkets and pay for people's groceries. I'm not Shaquille O'Neal. I don't walk into Walmart and put out $100,000 credit card. I can't do that.
Yeah.
He's done that.
Yeah.
Think about
Mhm.
how that comes back for him.
Mhm.
People are like, he's so successful. He really is
Mhm.
a genius at business. He really is. He's
Right.
really, really smart. I
Mhm.
wonder sometimes, he's always been so giving. A lot of these athletes are that maybe that's why they're still successful. Maybe that's why they're
Mhm.
still out there. It's not always for greed, but it sure as hell beats living a negative life.
I think a lot of it, I agree with you 100%. I think a lot of this, it goes back to mindset.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
believe if we train ourselves to look at the glass as being half full, then that's how we start to see things as half full. Um, there are people who just have such. I'm going to branch out in another direction. Wayne asked me to read something out for him because he's not feeling well, so he
Sure.
can't type it.
Yeah.
But I believe that sometimes people go the other way. There's just so much bad luck coming. How many times have I said to you, okay, people have messaged me and said, I think I'm cursed. I
Oh my
think
God.
somebody's throwing the evil eye at me. I think, which is how we opened up here with the evil eye. So some people, I mean, we've checked, we don't see anything, and it's just a matter of like, okay, this is mindset. But sometimes, there are things that are unexplained that keep happening to people. See, look, Wayne's sitting here. Managed to type that out, though, didn't you?
Yeah.
Never
There's
mind, half full,
not
half empty.
glass. Do you hear me? I always say it's refillable.
Yeah,
I
let's go with
stopped
that.
doing it's half full, but I do catch myself saying, oh, that's half full. You need to fill it.
Yeah,
I've never been the person who said half empty.
I know.
I
But
thank
so
my
many
parents for
people,
that. I thank my parents for that, though. They came from absolutely nothing. So everything was a blessing. Yeah.
right, as it should be. But some people, it's just like have these obscure things that happen to them. And I remember speaking to our elderly friend Bill and saying, because Wayne would say, I'm telling you, there's people up there watching and they just put blockers in front of you when you're driving and blah, 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 just all kinds of things. And I'd laugh. I'd say, oh, stop it. You're killing me with this stuff. And our elderly friend who does just, just to back up a minute, he does a lot of planetary work. He's truly a gift to humanity. And he is. This was told to me very early on. And he really, really is, with the amount of stuff that he has done for wildlife and energy and planetary stuff. And he's just brilliant. Anyway, he said to me, he goes, your friend's not wrong. I'm like, what? Now I have to admit that? No, I don't think so. I've lost him way too much. But this is something interesting. So I'm just going to read it off first, and then we can go on and comment and put stuff up. He goes, when I was in my 20s, I started to examine my life and started to wonder why it was so difficult. I started to wonder if whether or not I had been cursed somewhere along the line. I tried to explore this a number of ways, everything from going to occult shops and asking questions to visiting various psychics and fortune tellers. I ran into a vast number of people that were quite willing to say yes. I was cursed for a fee of approximately $500. They would remove it. I've heard this story so many
Oh,
times. Every one of them cautioned me not to tell anybody that I was seeking help because that would undermine the power of the removal. The last person I went to was a young woman in Oakville. When I told her what I was there for, she smiled and told me I did not have a curse and that if I did, she would remove it for free. That was, but what was it? Oh, that it was bad karma to take money for doing such services. If I had $1 for every time I heard,
we'd be in Scotland. We wouldn't be
we'd
here.
be
Sorry, guys.
in
We'd be
Scotland
talking
doing
to
this
you
show.
from Scotland.
I
Yeah.
know,
We'd still
but
do the show, but we'd be talking to you from a castle somewhere.
exactly, but
Yeah.
it goes to show you that there is so much of that. And some people truly, truly believe it. I used to say to Wayne, I said, he's got a beautiful light about him.
He
He's kind,
does.
he's giving,
He's so
like no one
gifted.
I've met, to be
No.
honest, with
No.
with respects to his kindness and his light.
I think
And
he
I
reminds me
said,
of my dad and my brother.
I really think that darkness sees the light, your light, and it's just like goes after you. And people who have that darkness that may be attached to them will automatically go after you for that. Like that's just a thing. But there's many, many different, scenarios. And I truly think that if you believe you are cursed, you're cursed. I believe that we are strong enough as individuals to be able to completely walk away from that. Seriously,
Mm-hmm.
I do. I really do. You can work
You,
with people to reverse energy, things like that. It happens,
yeah, we do
right?
that. There's a lot to the saying, you can do anything you put your mind to. But people always think it's either working out or saving money or saving up for. They don't apply it to, listen, this isn't going on. You can change how you react to this.
Hmm. It's true.
It's
It's
so
true.
important. And, I've had a lot of loved ones pass in my life at a young age. And I can tell you that I have always managed to find the silver lining in every one of them. There's been a lesson, there's been something that just shoots out at me and changes my life for the better.
Right.
And I always say it's like a gift before the ascend kind of thing.
Right.
But not
Right.
everybody can find that, because sometimes we all do this. We're so
Hmm.
down in our own darkness,
Hmm.
we can't see what's in front of us. So it's not something that, when we say this, we're not saying like we do this every day. We all go through bad things.
Hmm.
But I'm just trying to say, try to find the good in everything. Try to hit everything with perspective. Look at the whole picture. And my biggest lesson was knee-jerk reaction. I know someone who's a total knee-jerk reactor that drives me insane.
I can do that.
And no, you're not like that.
Oh no, you
You
get me
think
on a
things
bad day, I'll
through.
hiss at you.
You think things through. I had to learn the hard way not to be that way. And a lot of it was when I was taking care of my dad. I had to learn to be kind to people that maybe I wouldn't be kind to on a
Right.
normal day, because they were taking care of my father. So
Right.
things change. So use perspective, try to think about someone else's side, and remember that most people who are bitter or rude are usually really sad.
Hmm.
And that's why they are that way. So
Right.
if you can say, hey, how are you? Or hi, or smile at someone or hold the door, you'd be surprised at how much you can change that person's life just because you reached out for 3 seconds and opened that door for them.
Right. I agree. I agree. And what I want to do is I've just copy and pasted a few notes from some research that I've done
Yeah.
because I think some of it will apply. But, you know, things like this have been going on for, centuries, beliefs in, the supernatural, magic, spells, curses, things like that. So what's the actual definition of a curse? Well, of course, it's a series of words or actions calling for harm or misfortune to come to someone or even something, like words like curse, hex, jinx, dark spells. But here's the part on it that I thought was really interesting. It can only work if there's a strong enough power behind the words that are used and a strong intention behind the action that is performed. You've heard me say this when clearing. Power behind the words and the act of the clearing, the act of the cleansing. It goes the same way, the other way, for
Yeah.
somebody wanting to do harm. It's intention and power and the strength behind your intention and your words, right?
Anytime I hear clergy spit words out really fast, clearing a malevolent haunting at a house or blessing a house, I want to run because I know there's no intention behind that if you're spitting them out that fast.
Yeah, exactly.
You
Yeah,
know,
right.
it's like us Catholics who go to, I don't go to confession, but if you go to confession and he says like 3 Hail Marys, this, that, and you're like, there really is no cleansing of anything. So I'm
No,
just saying,
yeah,
yeah,
no, it's
definitely,
true. It's
definitely
true.
has to be something behind it. Otherwise it's meaning-less.
There's
It's
a
like
lot of,
it's as meaningless as reading a street sign. You're not going to remember that after. It's
no,
just
it's
gone.
true. For years I've worked with people, and we did one not that long ago where there was a belief that the family overseas was doing rituals to bring
Yeah.
harm to other individuals, kinder individuals in the family. And you know, we could reverse that sort of energy. But the belief in the culture was so strong that this could be happening and this was working. In the end, it worked.
Especially if you believe that they can do it to you.
That's right. Yeah,
That's why
exactly.
my mom was so into that evil eye, was because she really believed, and I believe it too.
Mhm.
You know, I know people who do the clearing of the evil eye, and the Italians, the way the culture is, because I know Turkey has their own culture with that, the Greeks have their own, and the Egyptians, they're all different in how they handle it.
Mhm.
With the Italians, when people say, oh, they drop olive oil into a bowl of water, well, there's a lot more to it.
Mhm.
There's a prayer, there's other stuff, but not only that, there is a rule that they cannot teach you or bring another generation in unless it's Christmas Eve, and it has to be midnight. So
Mhm.
Christmas morning. There's all
Mhm.
something to it because most Italians are Roman Catholic. It's got a lot to do with how they get around doing that kind of what I call hoodoo work in
Mhm.
a religious family, because
Right.
that really isn't something that's accepted. So that makes
Mhm.
me laugh too.
Right.
But, you know,
Right.
but everybody does things that are different. Some people will carry amulets or
Yep.
wear a saint on their, like inside their shirt, or a
Mhm.
stone. If you're into
Mhm.
crystals, it's the same thing. You're warding off that negative energy with it.
But that's because
It's
you're
the same
believing in the
because you believe it
power
works.
that it can do this. I mean, they've been
Yeah.
doing this for years and years and years, you know, haunted
Yeah.
objects or cursed objects. You know, I mean, hell, they used to have something called cursing tablets. That was like in
Wow.
pre-Christian times, you know, because you know it was just a concept that a lot of ancient cultures believed it, especially throughout like ancient Europe. You know, you had your amulets of protection, but you had amulets that you could place in places
Hmm.
that were said to be the object, the cursed object that would bring, you know, harm or
That's
bad
huge in the
luck or ill
Mexican
will
culture.
to the family, you know.
That's huge
Um,
in the Mexican culture where they
oh
put certain
yeah.
relics in a flower pot in that family. You'll see it on television. You see the stories all the time
Oh, for
where that
sure.
family is just devastated by this and they can't find it because it's in this flower pot on their property for like
It
the last 20
happens
years.
all the
We found
freaking
we
time.
found relics. Remember they opened the pot and they
Yep.
found
It's
it.
true.
We have found it, and it's just, and I'm amazed by how much we learn when we're helping different cultures. But that one was a little tough because of the belief system that was in place with that one family.
Right.
That was
No,
a little
it's
tough.
it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, let's go back. Let's look at the Tutankhamun curse, for example.
Mm.
You know, when I was in Egypt, I found it interesting in the belief system. And I remember I had two different guides while I was there. One was, you know, like an older man, And I'd say, okay, what about the curse of Tutankhamun? Oh, up and down. You have to beware of that. You don't go near that. There are
Yeah.
things they were dying. And I mean, I was just like, oh, holy crap. Okay, well, I have no intention of going there anytime soon. Anyway, so the next day I ended up with a younger guide. And I said, well, okay, I'm going to ask you your thoughts on the curse of Tutankhamun. He smiled and he said, well, it makes a good story and it sells and makes a good dollar. And I went, huh. So you see what I mean? Two different generations,
Two different beliefs.
belief system. Yeah. So I thought that's interesting. Cursed objects, the Hope Diamond. There's another one, like,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
and that's one, like, it's not like anybody realized it was cursed. So it wasn't necessarily a mindset thing, because it wasn't until it came into the hands of people that, fell upon, ill luck and death and illness, and they realized something was detrimentally wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I think energy is something that can definitely be manipulated. Obviously, it's definitely something that people can throw, and putting it in an object. Yes, you'd have to be able to pick up on that. So I don't know. Cursed objects or haunted,
I
it's a bit
I
different.
find it funny that
It can be
people
removed if you know it's there.
exactly. I find it funny that people really, really believe that the energy thrown is either a gypsy or a witch. It could be anybody.
Hmm.
It doesn't have to be that
It
stereotype
doesn't.
that you think and witches answer to Lucifer. Let's like change that, please. There's
Mhm.
different types.
It
Maybe,
could come from your neighbor next door with a strong enough intention. Then there's those death curses. I'm going to read this one out,
oh
and
gosh.
I know
I
this
used to put the
this was
fear
a
of God
good
in me
one.
as a child.
I
Yeah.
know, right? I know. Virginia will know this, because Virginia is well versed in this stuff too. But I want to talk about the Templar curse of Jacques de Molay. Okay, so for people who don't know, he was the last Grand Master of the Templar Grand Master. On October 13th, 1307, the Templars were rounded up, disbanded. King Philip IV of France, who was deeply in debt to them, spearheaded this entire charade. Many were tortured into making false accusations. On the March 18th, 1314, Jacques de Molay was burned at the stake on an island on the River Seine in front of Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, among others. As he was dying, he cursed King Philip IV of France, his descendants, Pope Clement, and everyone else who supported his death. He stated that within a year and a day that both men would die. He also stated that Philip's bloodline would reign no more in France. Well, Clement died first from a damaging disease on April 20th, 1314. Okay, so that's pretty darn quick. Roughly 1 month later, Philip died of a stroke while hunting shortly after the Pope. All of Philip's successors died tragically. So from 1314 to 1328, all of his sons and grandsons had died. After a 300 years of rule, the House of Cape Capet, whatever, no longer existed, and it fell within 14 years of Jacques de Molay's death. So, well, shit.
Imagine the power of manifestation if you've been lit on fire. Imagine the strength in your energy.
Yeah.
Imagine, and that was the man of God. That's how much pain he was in. He had been tortured for years. This isn't overnight.
No.
They held him and tortured him for years.
7 years.
Think about what that did to him psychologically and how strong his manifestation
There's some intention
was.
for you.
That is crazy that
Yes.
we have that historically written. This is not just a story.
No, people heard this. It was written down, and literally, a family who ruled for 300 years was no more.
They had to keep a journal because this was a war.
It was. Yeah.
So,
So again, it goes into the power of intention.
I want that kind of strength.
Right?
Not to do bad, to do good. I want that kind of strength.
Yeah, there we go. So, you have to basically, you have to see that there are such such things that happen. There are places that are said to be really cursed. I mean, I could go through a whole list of those because there's tons of them.
Oh
And you have to wonder, like, what puts a curse? And I don't want to talk about the one that's on TV because that
Mm,
one has just been proven and disproven, and some people believe it, some people don't believe it. There's so many others out there that don't have, any recognition.
yeah, I
But
think that one's just engineering.
yeah, well, whatever the case may be. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes, yeah, it's just bad engineering, bad luck.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that if, again, before we can get on to another topic, is if we can put enough belief in something, if you can, I'll use the one on TV just for an example. They talked about the curse for ages and ages. I mean, the locals all knew about it, and it was just a thing. Once it hit the airwaves, it really flew. And I think that just empowered everything. It's kind of
Hmm.
like that tulpa thing that I've talked about, like the
Yeah.
Slender Man tulpa. The intention of creating something that becomes so big that it brings it to life. So, how many of those, these stories that we hear, are we actually creating or manifesting ourselves,
Hmm.
like as people, you know? So,
I
yeah,
like Tamara's point. May I?
of course.
Tamara, hi, Tamara says, in my view, they broke universal law by killing people over money. So the curse would work as the universe works on a balance of energy.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's true. Even people like you were talking, Amelia, about doing psychic readings. Some people obviously, that's just their living. They charge for it, and
absolutely.
that's okay, to each his own. But there are some mediums or psychics that will do a reading, and they will actually turn their back to you, and you put your payment in a cup or whatever is left on the table. They don't look at it. They turn their back. They don't want to see.
Was that Lily Dale?
That was one of them, yeah.
I heard that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it was you
I've
who
seen
told
it.
me.
I've actually
Yeah.
partaken in somebody who did that. But then I started reading up a little bit more and talking to different people who had also said, "Yeah, that's the same thing." I don't know if it's a
Well,
spiritualist thing or if it's a
I think
medium
then it
thing.
becomes a gift instead of
That's right.
an invoice.
Yeah,
You
but then you
gift
can
what
look
you
at it,
feel.
be like a donation instead. But no, they just
Yeah.
they turn their back, and then you put that in there.
There,
I thought that's very interesting.
mediums
Um,
and psychics like that are doing this day in and day out. It's a job. It's a job. They're using their gift as a job, and they're spending hours upon hours and doing that, and
yeah,
they should be
absolutely.
compensated. If you go to a lawyer or you go to a doctor, they get paid for you being there to give you advice.
You know what?
So
Even if it's there as entertainment, because some of them will say, "Well, this is
I
websites is
did
there
that.
for entertainment." Yeah, well,
No, no,
for sure.
no, not with people. I went for
Yeah.
entertainment, and
Well, yeah,
I
that's
was
just it.
pleasantly shocked.
And with
Yeah.
that being said, that's if you go to a theater, you go to a club to dance, or you know what I mean? Like you basically you're paying for that entertainment. So it's to each his own. That's just where I leave it.
Yeah, Tamara
To
said
each
the
his
same
own.
thing. When I did readings, I only took donations and they were left on the table. I didn't handle the money. It's okay to
Yeah.
get paid. I don't want anyone to ever think
Why?
otherwise,
Why
you
did
know.
you not handle the money, Tamara? Can you
That's a good
just elaborate
question
on that? Yeah. Yeah. So,
because I don't know. Like I think that's very admirable.
mhm,
Very humble. It's a tough one. People tend to expect more from psychics and mediums, especially when they're friends with them. Just saying. Um,
yeah.
and we all have our days off.
Right.
Just saying.
Yeah. No. None
Yeah.
such. We're not allowed a day off.
No.
So that was our little introduction. It lasted
Yeah.
almost an hour, but I thought it was pretty informative. Um, so today is International Women's Day, and I've seen a lot of posts going on, especially within the paranormal.
I sent you the best one.
You did it. And basically, it was like, oh, like paying homage to the women of the paranormal. And I've had people tagging me all day. And somebody got really hostile about it. Just like, well, why aren't these people being honored, this and that? And it's like,
Oh no,
I
I was
I love
afraid of
you all,
this.
but
Oh
I
no.
don't need to be honored or revered. But thank you for thinking of me on this day. I look at everybody as being everything that they do being very valuable. And there's a lot of people within the field. I think that it was just nice that they were recognizing women in paranormal and average.
Absolutely.
Probably just tagged some of their favorites, which they're more than
Yeah, or
entitled to
friends.
do.
Yeah.
So, but thank you. I wanted to say that because I just can't respond to everybody who sends messages. It gets very difficult, and I apologize for that, but it's been a day. So, but
It's been a decade. But
yeah,
again, we're
but
going to change that energy.
I know. See, that's that whole that's that whole thing, that
Yep.
whole collective thing again.
Yep.
But um
And the belief thing too. I have this belief. Michelle knows this because she questioned me, and I said, "You can't use a cross to fight off evil." And she's like, "Why?" I go, "You need a crucifix." She's like, "Why? If you believe in the cross." I went, "I never thought about it that way, but I need the crucifix.
right,
That's just the way I've been brought up. Not that if you believe, Michelle's right. She's always right. But when you believe that
no.
this is going to work, like, I personally can't stand the smell of sage. People swear by it. I
Oh, I love
can't.
it.
I will
Yeah.
burn Palo Santo hour
I
upon
love that
hour
too. Yeah, yeah.
and dragon's blood, but I can't stand the smell of sage. It could ward off the biggest demon and I wouldn't use it. I would
Right.
find a different way.
Right.
It really makes me sick.
Right.
So, but I eat sage. I just can't stand the smell of white sage
Right.
burning.
Right.
So, it just, and I don't believe in sage, but a lot of people do.
But we're getting back into the power of intention,
Yes.
right? Again, like you can believe in something. I once had a really famous medium actually say to me, you know what? You can clear a house and recite a nursery rhyme if that's what you believe. If you believe it will work, then it will work because it's your intention and it's the power that you put behind all of that. And it's true. It's exactly true. And I said, "You're right. You're right."
I like that. Certain colors for protection. There's Bart. We were just bragging about you.
I know.
Bart
There
says,
we go, Bart.
working on curses as a shaman, and I hope I said that right. Everybody says it
Yeah.
differently.
Yeah.
I encounter reptilian curses from other lifetimes, still creating different forms of illnesses or ill effects on others. Nasty, and yet they can be cleared. And the crucial part is being able to identify in a person's body.
Mhm.
Then you can begin to change it.
Well said. That's true. I work
That's
with
why he
Bart.
does all the great stuff.
We work together. I've seen him. I've seen you in action, Bart, man. Yes, I have.
Yes. And Patricia, hi, Patricia says positive attracts positive, negative attracts negative. That's exactly how we started off. Yes.
Yeah, law of attraction, for sure.
Absolutely. Just we all have different cultures have different names for it. So sometimes it makes it spooky or creepy because it's been around for centuries. It's not.
See, that's something else that you can actually, that you can give thought to is generational curses.
Yeah.
Right? Generational curses.
There's one in, I don't know if it was India or Pakistan. I remember one of the ladies telling me that helped my dad that you would never tell someone that their child was beautiful as a baby. They would want you to like spit at the floor or something because if you told them they were beautiful, it would bring them harm.
Oh, it's crazy.
Right?
Right.
It's just like, and that's a whole other culture. It's just, I love hearing stories like that of these. I love them. They're just so amazing to me.
I find some of the best stories do come from, like ancient times or different cultures, and it's just something that gets passed down. But it's interesting to me how it holds credence, how it just keeps picking up speed. Like, it gets passed on, and even some of the younger generations. I mean, if you grow up hearing some of this stuff, you'd be just sort of like, holy crud, like Krampus. I always love the Krampus story. Well, you don't, behave yourself. Krampus is going to come get you, throw you in his basket and eat you. Kids grew up hearing this.
Mhm.
And even though it's like celebrated and fun and things like that, it's still part of folklore that is believed even to this day with some families who swear by it. What a horrific thing to grow up hearing.
Well, if you
You
believe
know?
in Santa, why couldn't you believe in
And
Krampus?
I love
It's
it. Yeah,
if
oh,
you believe
great.
in Archangel Michael, you have to believe in Lucifer. They fought,
Yeah.
you
Not well,
know.
the yin and the yang, right?
I
It's
grew
that
up
balance.
wearing, my mom used to pin little medals of Saint Benedict, who is the patron saint of exorcism.
Right.
Figure that one out. And Saint Michael to my
Right.
undershirt. What did I do to my daughter? Pin Saint Michael to her all the time. Padre
Right.
Pio, because that was one for
Does she
me.
resist you now when you try?
Actually, she's extremely religious. I'm not. But
I'm
yeah,
kidding, of course.
Sabrina's
She's
big.
25 now. It's like, Ma, stop it.
Stop. No, she's into anything that's protection, whether it's crystals
Right.
or
Right.
relics or
Yeah.
she's into anything. I laughed when she was going into surgery, which was at a Catholic hospital, and Sabrina is a practicing Catholic, and she says to me, um, she says, "Mama, I need a crucifix to bring to the hospital." I said, "Why?" She goes, "Because I need something to look at when I'm praying." I said, "First of all, you don't need anything to look at when you're praying. If you're praying, you're praying. It
Right.
doesn't matter." And then I said, "You're at a Catholic hospital. There's going to be one in every room." The first thing I pointed to when we went in there, even though I brought it for her because it
That's
made her feel
funny.
better, because that's her belief and that's where she gets her strength.
Right.
And I respect that,
But
even
you
though I
see,
don't, yeah,
that comes out again to um, the
mindset.
mindset, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah. Why
that's
do some people, they can lift cars off of their children or their loved ones?
let's talk
Because
about that.
they get that, and people say, "Oh, it's
Yeah.
it's serotonin." Get out of here. What are you talking about?
But it
No, it's
happens.
because they believe and they're there
That's
to
right. Yeah,
save, and
yeah.
they put all their energy and their focus on that. I
Right.
believe that that comes down to us not using our full capacity of our brain.
Oh, I completely agree with
And
you
by
on
some
that.
of the people out there in public, let me tell you something, it's obvious. Especially in politics, but we won't bring that here. But
Yeah.
yeah, it just it's amazing.
Mm,
I believed in a certain, I believed a certain way when she was born, and I believe that's why she survived.
mm,
It's
right.
there's
But
so much
that's
strength
what I'm
to
saying.
that.
It's part of your upbringing, your conditioning. So let's talk about traditions then. Like
Well,
now,
St.
we'll
Pio, my
branch off.
uncle taught me a lot about him.
Right. Yeah.
I thought he was the paranormal saint.
Right. 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 We can say it. It's okay. Like,
Yeah, it wasn't a Catholic thing for me. With
right.
St. Pio, it was about his stigmata, how
Yeah.
he continued and how many people he healed. He was a
Right.
healer.
Right.
And extremely humble.
Right.
Animals have the instinct of people being good or bad. I know.
It's true.
My dog's a brat. Yeah.
So getting back to traditions, like um, let's talk about conditioning and
Mm.
following um, those traditions that were taught. Because even today, a lot of traditions. Let's talk about grieving. Okay, I know. But I want to talk about it, because I find the Italian tradition like very interesting. And because it's European, I think, the Croatian people, the Slavic people are much the same
Well,
of
they used to
the
be Italian.
yeah, well, see, like
Yeah.
they part of what they believe is just like if you lose a spouse, you can never remarry. Wear black for the rest of your life,
It
things like that.
depends.
Like,
It depends on the funny thing is it depends on the province of Italy. And now things have changed because there's a new generation. So
right,
much like Egypt, you'll have the
right.
younger ones that say no. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
right,
And they're
right,
not, and Italy is not a total Roman Catholic country anymore.
right,
It hasn't been
right.
in years.
Yeah,
So a lot of beliefs are different. There's a lot of Buddhism there, there's Muslims there. There's it's not what it was.
right.
But yeah, there was, my father told me that he said some of the traditions were so ridiculous. They wouldn't bathe.
Right.
They would, and when people said they covered the mirror, for some it was because you didn't want your loved one to see their soul within the first 30 days, which is why we have in our culture, the Italian culture, it's not necessarily a Catholic thing.
Right.
The Italian culture, after the 30 days, you have a mass for them to help their soul ascend.
Right.
And it's not 40 days, which is shocking because everything in the Bible is 40 days. That's how I know it's very much an Italian thing.
Right.
And you do a year mass to make sure their soul has ascended and has moved on, because they figure by then the purgatory. So it's all that thing in their minds. They would put the cover on the mirrors, not just because they wanted to save the soul, like I was saying earlier, that they were afraid that their soul, the essence, would be captured. It was because they didn't feel that they could have any vanity, which I believe the Jewish people do that as same. But that's also provincial. Everything is different. Northern Italy does things a certain way. Southern Italy does things a certain way. And I think a lot of that has to do with there's bigger cities, much more bigger cities in. And
I think it changes on the outskirts. You have older traditions that are still honored and still.
Yeah, especially in the villages, like where my parents were from. And my father said it was just so ridiculous. But I thought it was ridiculous that he filmed his mother's funeral and watched it over and over and over again. I can't imagine.
It's like older
that did spiritually into my house.
Dead and kiss them and play with their hair. And
yeah, I do that. I'm that person that
person who can't leave the thing alone.
Right? I literally am the person that can take the chair and sit because I don't see them physically dead. Spiritually, I see them. So for me, it's different. I literally took a comb to my mother. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
It is different. It is different for everyone. Not everybody can handle that. Some people are traumatized by it. But the culture with the grieving, some of it in Italy is so heavy.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing that these people come out of it. Like my grandmother wore black her entire life. She was a widow in her 40s.
Wow.
I mean, we were black all the time, but
back then it's a little bit different though. It's like,
but back then it was a big deal. Like she died in 73, I believe, or 72. I was only 3 years old. I never met her because I wasn't allowed in nursing homes. But my grandmother, my father, I think about what did that bring into the house as a person on this end of things.
Sure.
I look back and think, what the hell did you bring into the house with that heavy grieving of watching that film over and over again? It drove my mother crazy.
Well, I could see that. I mean, people take photographs, people take videos.
I've pulled a couple cameras out of people's hands. Yeah.
With you guys, it's like, is it a yearly thing when you do masses? And like, for how long does that go on?
The first month you do one, and then a year. My father, for my mom, did it until he couldn't bend on the pew anymore, which was so hard because it was like reliving that funeral continuously. It was really hard on all of us, but we would support him.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually, as he got older, he just started doing it at different times where he could handle being there. And then he didn't want to be there because of his knees. He couldn't kneel. And that's a big deal to my dad. Was a very devout Catholic. So that was a big deal.
Right.
It's a year. They really believe that mass keeps them from going into purgatory.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Just like baptism, they baptize the child because they're scared. They don't want you taking the child out for 40 days. And after 40 days, you're supposed to baptize them.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. Yeah.
Because otherwise you can't take them out, because if something happened to them, their soul wouldn't ascend. How is that even possible with their belief system? It doesn't match. So, again, that's culture. That's not culture. A Catholic belief.
No, I can see that being culture. So I think at the point I'm trying to go with all of this, like we've seen a lot of, I have for years, and we've seen it together multiple times where we've worked with people who have brought, something in. Like I'm waiting for somebody right now to get back to me and who hasn't done it. And I know something's holding him back. Heavy, heavy grieving. And
Yep.
the story, with this, without getting into too much personal information, is that the spouse has come in and he heard the voice, but hearing all kinds of other voices. And I'm thinking, okay, something is wrong with that. So
It's scary.
How many times have we seen this happen? And, you think back to how many people go through traditions such as yourself, like with grieving, like your culture. And you think it's just quite normal. I mean, it doesn't happen. Things don't always come in just because you're grieving. But I think it just comes down to so many people wanting that experience with their loved ones so desperately
Yep.
that they're willing to listen to just about anything. Honestly, I worked with a family. It was so bad one time that wanting to communicate with their parents so desperately that when things started coming in, within 3 months, things started happening immediately, and within 3 months, the entire family was devastated. I mean, separated, devastated, destroyed.
That's sad.
It was. You had somebody
that's
like
sad.
the $1 million family, as they say. You have the son, the daughter, the big house, the business, the cars, like everything. And then all of a sudden, in the blink of an eye,
It's the first
in
thing
the
to go.
time frame of their lives, everything was gone.
Yeah, it's the first thing to go is what you cherish the most. And if that's
Sure.
what you cherish, that's sad.
Exactly. Well, your family,
Yeah, your family. No, I'm talking about the material stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I'm talking about
but
the
I'm just
material
saying,
stuff.
on the outside looking in, this is what you saw.
Yeah.
And on the inside, you had so much upheaval going on. And it all started with the loss of a loved one and such a hard grieving that everything just went. That's fast, 3 months.
It was part of the reason why a lot of people had their viewing for their loved ones and they didn't do the what's it called? Oh my God. Oh, what's that called? The process when they prepare the body. I can't.
Embalming?
Yes.
Right.
They didn't do embalming in Italy. They always, a lot of European countries, you would have the viewing at the home.
Right.
And a lot of that wasn't because they didn't have funeral homes, because they do. It was the belief of keeping, for my family anyways, it was the belief of keeping the soul safe at home and then send them on. Right. And it was only one day because there wasn't any embalming. You can't keep a body that long.
No.
But that's where the visitation was in the home. Mm-hmm. So when you see that in films, that was very common in the day.
It is.
And my grandfather passed away in 93. That was only 30 years ago. That is unheard of to have it at home, true. But it's the way he wanted it.
Right.
So, it's not something that is practiced anymore in Italy. But if you go into the villages of any European, like Croatia too, Croatia's got really deep roots and and customs and that. And you'll find it there as well. Mm-hmm. Portugal, same thing, very similar.
Right.
But it's a belief. It's not a religious thing. It's a cultural thing. There's a difference.
Right. Why don't we're going to do our station sponsor ID a little bit early. And
who's our guest?
Get into, Wow. Assassin.
No, because I all of a sudden I got this little inside because I'm like, I don't have it written down. It's like
Tamara's already ready to go.
Yeah. So
when you weren't here, I was getting these little freaking things at 10 o'clock. I'm like, hey, it's not that early.
I know. I'm looking, going, wait a minute. It's only 10:15.
I know. Early. Just for you, Tamara.
Anywho, put that coffee up there, Tamara, in the chat room. You are listening to The Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano, coming to you live from the gorgeous city of New Orleans on 107.7, 105.3 FM, and on Roku. Yes. Tonight, we've got us in the house because we are doing a Q&A, and Susan Hansen couldn't make it tonight because she had a family emergency. So please send your thoughts, your prayers, your good wishes to her and her family. And we hope that everything works out well for her. And we hope to see her soon. I am stuttering. You know, I need coffee, and this is the kind of coffee that I need. When you're streaming, listening to our archives on the platform you normally use, make sure that you pour yourself a cup of Folgers. A shout out and a thank you to the amazing people at Folgers Coffee for fully sponsoring our show and for continually supporting us. We love you and we thank you so much. A huge thank you to Justin Snicker, Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, award-winning composer and musician. You can find his music on Amazon and Bandcamp and find him on Facebook and Instagram. Speaking of which, you know what I'm going to say. If you're on YouTube right now or you're on Facebook watching this, please like and hit that subscribe button. We know you're out there. We see the numbers, but we're not seeing them on we're not seeing them on YouTube.
I know.
And if you haven't subscribed or you have Roku, look for us. Is it under United Public Radio or is it under
right here? It is
There we go.
actually under UFO Paranormal and United Public.
Nice.
So I'm going to try and let me just look at something here. Bear with me, people. Okay. So let me
I
see.
need coffee.
Let me see if I can do this. Okay. I want to show you guys because there's a lot of confusion. So bear with me. There's a lot of confusion. People are trying to find something. There it is. They're like, we can't find you guys on Roku. There we go. 1 minute. There.
Oh, that's probably why, because he's got it in purple and pink.
I know. So, it's got a cute little write-up there, courtesy of yours truly. Thank you very much.
our in-house wordsmith. Just
I know, everybody says I get Michelle to write it. It's like,
we make her write everything.
But this is what you're actually looking for. So go out and find it, and it's UFO Paranormal and United Public, which covers both of the networks, and you can find all the live shows. Basically, when you have a show you want to watch on the comfort of your own home on the big screen, then this is the one that you want to watch it on. If you want to, watch a few of the archives, they do cycle through, obviously, and you'll be able to, catch probably the last couple of weeks worth, and they just keep adding and adding. So check it out. So now you know what you're looking for. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, what you asked me about the Italian culture. What about you?
Oh, well, we have, of course, it's really tough because, hold on. There we go. Gone. All right. I'm like a squirrel. What's that?
I'm rubbing off.
I know.
I've been doing this for years, so I'm really experienced at it. It's new for her.
And share. There we go.
Thank you, Tamara.
Share it.
Third host. Yes.
Exactly. Thank you, Tamara.
We love you.
I know. Our cultures are very different because I sort of have a melee, we've got French and we've got a lot of United Kingdom and, Scottish, things like that. There's a whole mix. My grandmother, had a bit of Portuguese in her and again, the French. So it was a mix of things. Funerals were very interesting in my family because we had a lot of mediums in the family. Mm-hmm. So we would basically everything was just sort of a celebration. Like everybody was sort of aware that this is just a shell that's there. And I remember, my grandmother standing next to herself at the funeral home and I'd be sitting there and my uncle would be sitting there and she'd be listening to what people were saying about her because that was just what she did. And people, we would laugh because it's like, look at her just standing there. These unsuspecting people better be saying nice things because she was like about 5 foot tall, if that, and very saucy. So yeah. But
us little people do that.
We celebrated. Like don't get me wrong, we mourned. We had people in the family that were just professional mourners. And they would kind of get hostile too about it.
They're loaded with the screams, but they don't do that anymore. It used to be really bad.
Oh, well, some people get really hostile. Like it was something we always adopted as just being, okay, we're going to have that big meal afterwards. We're just going to sit there and tell really great stories about them. It's just, we didn't look at it that way. I grew up being very open about it. I would be brought to the funeral. And I had never had reservation about
I've gone
walking
since a
up
child.
to the casket and just,
No.
I didn't, it wasn't strange for me to touch them. It wasn't strange for me to be around them. I didn't fear any of that
I
stuff.
have to touch them. And when we went through this whole viral thing, you weren't allowed to. And
Yeah,
I have the need to physically touch the person who's deceased.
right,
Even though I can see them, I
right.
have to have my hand there. It's something that I've always been comfortable with, though.
Yes,
You too. See, I
yeah,
didn't know that.
yeah. Never bothered me at all. I mean, come on. I had an antique funeral collection for years
Yes.
of
Yes.
just
But I'm saying
weird.
you went as a young child, which I did too. My first funeral, I
Yeah,
think
I
I was
wasn't
8 or
sheltered like
9.
that.
No,
No.
we took my daughter everywhere.
Yeah,
She was traumatized by my brother's death. That traumatized her. It
right,
stayed with her.
right.
Yeah.
Death is a funny thing. I have a family member obviously now going through cancer, and um, keep saying, "I'm not afraid to die. I'm not afraid to die." I'm like, how about just fight to live?
How about
You have a
saying I'm
lot
not
of
afraid
years.
to live?
Yeah, just go, just go.
Yeah.
Keep going. Like there's a long time here. Um, but I felt good to hear. I'm not afraid to die, and you shouldn't be. I
No.
think that comes down to the living are we're conditioned to see. We have to see things. I think this is maybe why some mediums use cards or stones or because people need to see something physical to be able to associate with the
Sometimes,
reading,
yeah, it's
you
just
know?
the person you're reading that needs it. I don't need the
Exactly.
cards. And I
No,
find a
I've
lot of
never
people
been like
want
that.
them.
I've
No,
never
but
been
they
like that.
want
Never
them.
used
And
them.
I'm like, just show
I
me a
know,
picture.
but
But I do whatever makes it comfortable for them.
it comes down to the need to having to see something,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
So for me, again, coming from that side of the family, it's very common to be like, no, I'm not worried about that. I always say it's just the next leg of your journey, and thank you, Tamara, in my head. So
Yeah, death is a transition.
yeah,
It's just the person that is left behind has the hardest time with
that's
it.
right. The
And when
grieving
they
is not so
say
much that, it's just not seeing them, I think.
no, and when they say, like I've said it, my dad took a piece of me with him. My
Yes,
mom, my brother, yes, my
of course,
child, of course, she was
of
my
course.
baby.
Yes,
But it's a piece of you because your soul's connected.
that's
But
right.
it's hard to see it in the moment of grief.
Hmm.
Grief can bring on so much. It could heal you, it could ruin you.
Hmm.
It could mess you up. It could bring stuff in.
It
It's
can.
so sad.
It
It
can.
is sad, but I mean it's tough and everybody grieves differently
Hmm.
and you grieve differently for different deaths. You're not going to grieve the same for someone who's, let's say a distant grandparent or than you would for my God, the unthinkable a child. It's
Hmm.
just
Yeah, it's true.
yeah.
It's true. And there's no time limit to it. People seem to think you should, oh, still going on about it. My mother said to me the other day, I think it was on the 5th of the month, she goes, well, she goes, it's the anniversary of my father's death. I'm like, what? That's like, what, 50 years ago? She goes, yes.
Yeah.
And she's
She's
still,
remembering him.
exactly,
Well, to her
exactly.
it's still daddy, right?
Oh,
So
absolutely. She's had a
because we
lot of
might
visits with
age.
him and,
Yeah, you might age
visits.
on the outside, but inside you're still his little girl.
It's true.
I
Yeah.
understand that, but yeah.
Yeah, it's true. But she's had many visitations with him. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about visitations.
Yes.
How do people know the difference between a visitation and a dream or a mimic? For me, I can only speak for myself, and then Bubbles, you could, see what it's like for you. For me, dreams are very scattered. A visitation that I've had many times with many friends and loved ones that have passed on, I remember every single detail. They're so clear and they're so detailed. And I'm having a conversation. I remember every little thing. For
Mhm.
my grandfather, for example, my grandmother always had a vision of the perfect little house. It was a little yellow house. It had a beautiful little white fence and gardens all around it. And he died, many, many, many years before she did. And let's just say my grandfather was a bit of a colorful character, and my grandmother never forgot it. And she was mad at him till the very end. And he would come visit with her, after death, and she'd be like, I'm still not talking to you. But every time one of my aunts or uncles passed away, I would have another visitation, and that they would be there with my grandfather. He was making the house a home and bringing his children home. And this was how he wanted me to know they were together, and
Mm-hmm.
they would be putting this place together as a family, waiting for my
Oh,
grandmother, who, by the way, was so mad at him, she didn't go. Okay.
see?
A strong little Portuguese French going, no. And she's like, no, I didn't go. And then when my best friend passed away,
That's hard.
it
I've been
was,
through
yeah.
that.
I had
That's
two
hard.
best friends who passed away. They both came to me, and she came to me, and I'm blubbering, in my dreams. I'm like, I thought for sure I was just having a dream, and then I'm having a conversation with her, and I'm just like, because we were like sisters from 6 years old. She was my sister before I ever had sisters, and I'm
Yeah.
like, what am I supposed to do without you? And she goes, you'll go on, and it's like this light bulb, and I'm like,
Because
go
it
on.
feels like the earth stood still when you lose someone you love.
It is. And you know what? I never grieved after that for her like that. And she came through. She goes, you need to see and realize how happy I am right now. She had a really hard life. She goes, I am so happy right now. And I looked at her. I woke up, of course, my pillow was just tear soaked. But I woke up so refreshed. And I'm like, that was a visitation. It was just pleasant. It was calm. And every single detail was crisp and clear.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's good that you had that. I think for a lot of people, dreams are the way because it's safe. A
Yeah.
spirit will come in while you're dreaming to communicate with you, and
Yeah, had that
sometimes
too.
you wake
Yeah.
up happy and you don't know why because you don't remember that dream, but they have communicated with you. But a good medium can tell you
Yeah.
that they have communicated with you, and they can tell you what happened in that dream sometimes because your loved one will tell them, say, hey, tell
That
them
was
that I was
me.
here and
Yeah.
and we were here and this was the surrounding and whatnot.
Mhm.
For me, it's been different with everyone I've lost.
Yeah.
It's my cousin came to me through a medium who was trying to read me and couldn't. I didn't know how shielded I was, but apparently she couldn't break the walls down.
Mhm.
And she said to me, your cousin's here. Siv was blonde, blue-eyed, which is not normal for Southern Italians, but
Mhm.
our ancestry our lineage goes back to the north and over.
Mhm.
So she said, "Oh, you forgot about me. Please tell my dad I'm okay." I called my uncle.
Mhm.
Excuse me. We've been both fighting this
I know.
for months, and I did do that for her,
Mhm.
which was funny. But my mom was a trickster. I find that my close loved ones,
Right.
the way they were in life is how they are in death.
Right. Right.
My mom's mother was doting and nurturing, and she came to me that way when I was troubled.
Right.
My mom, I've told you this story. I love my espresso cups. I'm an espresso lover. I love my cups. I have I don't know how many, probably as many as Michelle has chairs, and I don't use them.
Ooh,
And
is that a
yes, they
chair dig? Did Wayne put you up to that?
no, but I have probably as many glasses and espresso cups as she does chairs. That's I love different, but they have to be unique. They can't be typical cups.
Right.
So I had them all lined up on my shelf in my kitchen. And I am anal. I will say
Right.
that. The left, the right side all has to be pointing this way. The left side all has to be pointing that way. And I would see right in front of me. And I'm like, she used to do that to me
Because
in
she
the
knew your
house.
OCD.
She used to do that to me in the house.
Yeah, yeah.
She used to do that and look. And she'd laugh and she'd move something and I'd be like, how?
Right.
Right? And she would
Mhm.
just laugh her head off. And she used to pinch me. I still get pinched.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
not a demon, but I would
Right.
not just accept that the first time. I
Right.
would dig and make sure.
Right.
My brother was a master electrician, and guess what he plays with?
Right.
Lights.
Exactly. Exactly.
My dad was all heart and soul, and that's how he comes to me, full. I have
Right.
never in my life had that kind of interaction
Mhm.
with anyone who has passed away
Okay, so
thus far
here's
as him.
another question for you then on that one. How do you know when? Because I believe it's a feeling, like we should know, but we
For
can be tricked, right? So how do you know when it's a mimic?
I honestly believe this is for me. I don't think that everybody should take this because this is what I do. So it's different for me. I can see if something's not right.
Mhm.
But I believe that you can't trust everything that you see. I've questioned things, I've never just taken it the
Mhm.
way it is. I've always like looked and ignored it, went to see what else happened.
Mhm.
They will mess up. And it's not
They do.
always, yeah,
They
and
do.
it's not always what you think. It's not always the banging and all that
No,
other
no,
stuff
no, no,
because
no.
that's not necessarily an angry ghost. That's a demonic entity. Um, if you're smelling things and you're hearing things, you need us. You don't need to communicate. But when it's a mimic, they mess up.
They
Whether
do.
it's their appearance,
Yeah.
something will be off.
Yeah, like sometimes I've had reports of people saying their clothes were too big. Their eyes were very dark. Their hair wasn't right.
Right? The
But
eyes is
again,
a big one.
we
My
talked
dad
with
had gray
Joe
eyes. Why are
and
your eyes brown?
yeah,
You know.
and talking to Joe, it's like dimensional bleed through. It's just an imprint of something else from a different dimension. And that's also possible. But I know that my mother, especially at the old house, this is the old house is the one that you guys I would have talked about. I've only told my story literally one time publicly on television, and that
Yeah.
was on my paranormal nightmare.
Yeah.
And that house was just it was just crazy. It was just really heavy with attachment energy and so on. And she lived in that house long after I was gone. And she said to me, my father went into extended living, and she got into bed one night before she hadn't even fallen asleep yet. And she said, I leaned over
Mm.
and your father was there. My father hadn't been there in about 2 months at this point,
I remember when that happened.
right? And
Yeah.
she touched him and it was solid. But she realized, like, I'm glad she hadn't fallen asleep yet. She realized, she pulled her hand back and she went, and he looked at her and she said there was something about him that didn't look right because I couldn't figure out why he was there. Now,
Mm-hmm.
this was her awake. Let's fast forward a little bit. I would say 6 months after. She basically, in a dream, my father is there.
Mm-hmm.
But she's fully aware. She goes, I'm not fully sleeping because I'm fully aware of everything. I can hear everything going on in the house, things like that. And he's standing there in all of these clothes that are way too big for him and stuff that he would never wear. And I'm thinking, this is interesting to me because my father is still alive. Even today, he's still alive. This happened to her. One happened to her at the old house, and the dream type thing happened to her at her new place.
I believe when they're like that they astral project and they visit.
But again, that's
Not every
so
time.
off. No, but I'm
Yeah,
just
it
saying,
is.
because I completely believe that.
Yeah.
But to be
I remember
physical,
we had to check.
yeah, to be physical, that one was kind of threw me. And the other one,
Physical, I already know
completely
that's
not
not
looking like
normal.
him at all. Like
No.
it's just not
There's
him.
always something off. Trust your gut. If you're
Yeah.
afraid, I used to tell people if you're afraid, that's a sign right there because your
Right.
loved one will not make you fear.
No.
If
No.
it feels angry or it feels off, it is off.
Mm-hmm.
The most important thing I think what Michelle and I would tell you together is do not communicate, do not engage.
See, that's the thing people don't realize is that when you start, if you can realize at all. That, like, my mom realized both times something wasn't right.
But
So
she's
right
also
off the bat,
gifted.
she just went, okay, that's it. Oh,
Yeah,
for
but she's
sure.
also gifted.
For
So it's
sure.
different. Yeah.
Yeah. But to start communicating with something, especially, like I said, in the grieving state, it's really difficult. But I've met people who all of a sudden start having something going on in the house, and they feel this huge urge to communicate, do video, do voice recordings. I remember Lorraine Warren saying to me one time, she said, it's the worst thing somebody can do is to do EVPs in their own home. And I'm
Been
thinking,
there.
really? Yeah, I worked with a woman who did, as well. And shortly after Lorraine had told me that, and I thought, oh, okay, I've never come across anybody. That must be a pretty obscure thing. She goes, oh, one of the worst cases I ever did was somebody who was communicating within their home. And I was like, oh, that's wild. And then I ended up working with a woman who was a widow. Her husband hadn't been gone very long. She wouldn't even sell his car. It was still sitting in the garage. And she basically had a voice message that was just growling and so terrifying. And she goes, I need to know, is that my husband? I'm like, I don't know. Did he like you?
Right.
I mean, it was really, really bad. And she became very addicted to doing these recordings, assuming, because you heard someone on there, and she goes, that is his voice. I'm like, but that is not him.
No.
He's saying things to you that he would never say to you.
I know,
And
but it's
it
that
got worse
reaching.
and
Yeah.
worse and worse. And I was being brought in. Thankfully, we were in the same city at the time. She kept bringing me in to read. She'd throw a picture at me. She'd say, I need a message. I'm like, it got to a point after about 3 or 4 times, I just said, I'm not coming back. If you can't help yourself, I'm not coming back. I'm not just going to keep giving you messages, And he couldn't even get in the house as her loved one because of all these other things that were coming in.
Yeah, that's sad.
Absolutely.
It's the grief. It's the
Yeah.
pain. I like
Yeah.
what Tamara says. I mean, I always like what Tamara says. This is really, really good. I don't engage in spiritual communication if a family member is in spirit and they show up. It's usually a message you aren't required to respond to. It's different when you're gifted, because
Yeah.
when you're grieving and you're not, that's the problem. That's where the issues come in. But this is a good point. I like to tell people, when they've asked me, I always say, would you let a complete stranger in your house and just walk around and talk to you or yell at you or no? Well, then don't engage, because this is not who you think it is.
Right.
You
Many
know?
times it's not. Many times it's not. And this is where children run into a lot of trouble is,
Mimics are bad.
somebody coming in and looking fairly benign and ends up being totally opposite. And then there's all this upheaval going on. It's good to teach children from early on. I grew up in that world.
Yeah, I didn't.
My father was pretty funny about it. He's like, oh no, that's ridiculous. That stuff doesn't exist, blah, blah, blah. I think it worried him. I found out later in life that my father was very gifted, and so was his mother. And, he would tell me all these stories as an adult of things he would see. Oh yeah, we would be out fishing. My grandparents at the time owned an island on a really large lake up north. And he goes, we were out at they call them camps, not cottages. So it's depending on, on the area.
Where you are. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, because we're up at the camp and I was watching all these, like UFOs in the night sky. Like they would see this stuff all the time. They'd go up there for 2 weeks or whatever, right? So they'd be
Especially
seeing this
north.
stuff.
Yeah,
And
it's all
and
open.
the eye opener for him was when a friend of his died. He committed suicide. And they also had a camp up on a different area. And he said, whenever we would go fishing up in the area after his friend had died, they didn't stay at the camp. Obviously, the family had sold it. And his friend would always have this habit. He ate popcorn all the time, and you would always smell it all the time on the property. And he would leave a little light on in the kitchen window at night. and he would let music play. And he goes, we would fish throughout the day, or, just coming into dusk, because you could get certain fish at dusk. And we
Mhm.
would see the light and the loud music and the smell of popcorn. See, he started opening up more about it. He just didn't fear it as much. Whereas my mother, I grew up, my mother be just like, okay, blah, 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 blah. And when things were going on in that house, like, she knew it and she would question me on it. And, my sisters were terrified to go down in that basement. I mean, right to the day where we cleaned that house out when she sold it. Um, and my dogs were just losing their mind. That's getting back to, dogs and seeing things. And
Mhm.
it was just, the house was empty and it still had that really heavy feeling. So I would just, I cleared while I was there, clear, clear, clear. It never stayed clear. And how many times we go at that place?
Yeah.
Apparently it's good now. Apparently family reports really great things with it. And
Good.
it's great. Yeah, they're just 2 doors down from my sister. My sister still lives it's like 2, 3 doors away from this house.
Did a lot of work there, though.
Nonstop. But it
Yeah.
took that much. It took
Yeah.
that much work.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Crazy, right?
I think
Yeah.
you have to don't deter your children. Don't say to them, no, that doesn't exist. Don't enable them. Don't lead them. And, you don't have to do that, but don't make them feel silly and say there's no such thing as imaginary friends. Maybe that friend is not imaginary. And maybe whatever is there may not be so kind. And they're banking on the fact that they're isolating that child from their parents, the only people who can help that child, by knowing they're going to be made to look foolish, and that he or she as a child will stop
Yeah.
talking.
You have to think of it as a supreme spiritual bully
Mhm.
with
That's
a
a good way to put
lot
it.
of power. You teach your children to, defend themselves with bullies at school. You have to do
Mhm.
this as well. I'm not saying pull your kid out and say we need to talk about ghosts. Only if for me, I always say if they're showing and talking about it, don't ignore it. But kind of like sex ed with kids, they only need to know
Para
little
ed. Yeah,
snippets.
para
You do
ed.
not need to
Yeah,
tell them everything. Edit,
exactly.
edit, edit. They just need an answer from you, and then they will forget they
But a
even asked you.
legitimate answer, not a
Yeah.
don't, that's stupid. Like, if a little child, they're going to stop talking. And I can't tell you, over the last 2 decades, countless, countless families I've worked with, um, where it's been the children who have brought something in unknowingly. It's really, really difficult because
Yeah.
children will be either bullied into or tricked into making invitations, whether it's something, non-human, or whether it's just a really aggressive human energy,
Mm-hmm.
like that happens.
A lot.
And I also want to make note of something, just because I was speaking with somebody in the last couple of days about how certain spirits, human spirits, can affect the living. I remember working with one family who had moved into a home, and I'm just going to reword things a little bit. The one family member who had been, you know, having issues, started taking up addictions, like substance abuse.
Self-medicating.
Yes. And after researching the history of the home, they realized someone had died in the home who had substance abuse. So they
Mm.
started taking on the characteristics of that spirit that was still grounded. And I really want to stress this. This actually can happen.
I've had
So,
this experience. I'll tell you about it after.
okay.
Yeah.
So this actually can happen, where you were influenced, whether it's a residual energy that just sits there and just never gets cleansed and you're just living in it, or whether it is a spirit who's grounded influencing you in the background. They can, exactly, they can make you sick. They can pick up on certain addictions, or if that spirit's depressed or has high levels of anxiety, that's going to be you. And some
Yeah.
people believe that certain objects that belong to a deceased person can also do that to you. So if you're buying antiques, or like especially jewelry that meant something very personal to an individual, cleanse it. Just cleanse it and get that energy out of there. Some people are like, oh well, this belonged to so and so. I'm like, but if so and so died of a cancer, let's say, and then you find yourself with this imprinted energy, that's maybe even making you go through the motions of what they went through. Not necessarily that you have cancer,
Yeah,
but
it's a
you
way of
may,
communicating. Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
just this stuff can happen.
I think anyone who's ever seen an episode of Ghost Whisperer has seen that,
Ah,
because she
yeah,
did a few of them.
yeah.
I'll tell you about my experience. As you know, I don't do readings, but when I used to go to the Hummer dealership, the gentleman that they call him car jockeys, but he took care of my vehicle. He and his family wanted to connect with both parents, had passed away close together, and we had set this up, and I was going to drive down there. I never do this. I never do group things. There was just something that compelled me to say yes.
Mhm.
And it wasn't just because of him. It was just something that said, just go. And I said,
Right.
okay. And I told them, I said, I'll do my best. That's a lot of people. It was over 10 people in that room. It's a lot. It's not
Mhm.
something I normally do.
Right.
So this is about 2.5 weeks before. Now, my love of tuna. Not.
Yeah.
I ate tuna for 2.5 weeks out of a can.
Oh,
And I could not. John's just looking at me like, what the hell is going on with you? I'm like, you need to buy tuna when you go to store. You got to pick up tuna. Like I don't like tuna to this day. There was a particular brand that came from, it wasn't even something that I was accustomed to even having in my house. And I'm eating and I'm eating and I'm eating this. I'm going, what the hell, man? Like, I don't even like this. I'm sitting there, we're talking, I'm going through each individual person to make sure they get their connection. And I come to his sister-in-law, and I said to her, I go, a funny thing, because she was telling me about her mom and how she loved tuna sandwiches. I'm like,
there we go.
Mother of God, seriously. I
There we
said,
go.
can you tell her to stop? I go, I have to tell you this. I have been
Right,
eating
right.
tuna out of a freaking can for 2.5 weeks.
Right.
Literally had it before I went there. Brushed my teeth. I'm like, what am I doing? I
Right.
stopped eating tuna after that.
Once you make that connection.
I don't know if she was a trickster. I don't know if it was, she just said, my mom just loved tuna, just loved it. She ate it almost every day. And I'm like, oh my God, it's her. So
Right.
yeah, this was a different kind of, thank God it was benign.
Right.
And it was funny after the fact, but not so much while I was going through it, because even though I was eating it, I still didn't like it. But I felt like I had to have it every day.
Right.
You couldn't get me to eat tuna if you paid me.
I know.
I can't stand the smell of it. I can't stand
I
anything
can do
about
without
it.
it. Yeah, I can do
And I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. My husband's the one that eats tuna, not me. And I'm like, oh, no way.
Right.
My seafood is like this much variety of fish that I eat. So this was a big one for me. And I thought something was happening to me. I thought, is my body betraying me somehow? Like, is there something wrong with me that like in my blood that I'm craving mercury? Because that's how I see tuna. Right. And I'm like, am I just craving mercury? Like, what the hell is going on? And it never once clicked that it could be possible that someone on the other side was doing this to say, hey, I'm here. Tell them I'm here.
Yeah. And sometimes it's something that simple, because I don't want everybody to think everything is demonic. Everything is, sometimes it really can be human spirits. It can be logically explained, like that psychokinesis, throwing energy. Oh my God, how many times have you heard me harp about that?
They never believe it, though.
No, well, people have difficulty, and I don't understand why people have so much difficulty thinking that, or realizing how we are really powerful. Like we it's like, Amelia was saying a little bit earlier on the show, we only use a very small part of our brain as to the capacity of things that we can do. And psychokinesis is a big one, especially for children going through puberty, especially young girls, women going through menopause. Hello,
Mm.
and you can throw energy like there's nobody business, and you can create sound. You can create those footsteps. You can get those doors opening and closing. You can move things. You can get cupboard doors opening and closing.
Oh yeah.
People say, well, it's poltergeist activity. Hence, and poltergeist activity is like projected energy,
Yeah.
right? So it's sort of the same thing, and
Yeah. Or
it
you can break
happens more often
small
than not.
kitchen appliances, like someone we know,
Yeah, there
constantly
you
breaking
go.
small kitchen appliances.
Yeah, there you go. So it
Um,
happens. It
it
happens.
does. It does. It's. I think it's really cool, actually.
It can be really
I
cool.
wish I could purposefully move things, but I can't,
I know. I'd like
because
to
believe
levitate the
me,
car in front of me when I'm driving. That's just
and just
in the wrong lane. Just move them
yeah.
over.
See, me,
It would be nice
it's
as
people
well.
that are loud in a restaurant. I want to take them and
Yeah,
move them, and
just move them
sometimes I have to shield myself so I don't hurt them.
I know, yeah. But
I don't want the karma. That's
it
what it comes down to.
it
I don't
can,
want the karma.
it can, if you're projecting your own energy at them, absolutely.
Yeah.
I truly think that because of the times that we have come out of in the last while and the times that are still ahead of us, uh, there's a lot of loss of life, and there's a lot of things going on in the world that people are on edge and people are scared, people are angry. So I'm going to come and end the show with a full circle of going back to collective consciousness. We really get back what we put out. If you want peace in your life, if you want anything positive to come to you, you have to put that out. If you want good people in your life or a good relationship, you have to put that out. Because if you're just this ball of negative energy, and it may be with good reason, it may be 100% with good reason, but unfortunately that's what you are. It's like a neon sign. This is what it's an energy, and this is what other similar type of energies connect to, and this is what comes back to you. So I want to leave this as just put something positive out there every day. Just wake up and set an intention for yourself, and just make it a positive intention. Like, don't be judgmental.
No.
Don't worry about other people's lives. Don't worry about what other people are doing. Leave the drama. Just leave it away from your personal space. If you can't handle that type of energy, then don't be around it. Some people
Yeah.
can handle it a lot better. Some people are in positions in their lives, of management or business ownership. They can handle that sort of
Or
stuff.
just big family.
Yeah, right? but
It just
just
it happens.
uh,
But yeah,
just
find
fo-
something to be grateful for every day.
every
That
day.
helps.
Set your intention, put out positive vibrations, and just elevate yourself. Life, Nikola Tesla said it right. It is about frequency, vibration, and that's intention, all of that. You are more in control than you think. And again, it's like Tamara and both Dolly said, we may not be in control of life itself, but we do have control over how we react to it. We do have control over our actions. That is something you do have control over. So that's maybe
Reactions.
something to focus on, and just, let's just do it right. Let's go. Let's go. We're so newly into 2023. Let's just kind of put good thoughts. If every single person on this planet put one good thought, just one tiny good positive thought of intention, or kindness out in the world every single day, that's how they started their day. That's what would go into the collective consciousness. It would not take long to connect everywhere. And I think you'd start seeing a little bit less aggression. Any last words, Bubba, before I sign off?
Just find something to be grateful for every day,
Mhm.
and it'll change your world. I know it's easy to be in a negative spot. It's easier and it's harder to be positive. But
Absolutely.
choose what's best for you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Completely. I completely agree. And I think that with that being said, like I said, all it takes is one, just one person to be able um, to be able to do that. One. It starts with one. So let it be you.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to close off. So we want to thank everybody who's been in the chat room. Tamara, your champion, still going strong. It's like, and and of course, very last minute. So of course, we do want to put out our best thoughts to Suzanne Hansen, who did have a family emergency, and we wish her and her family all the very best. And we're looking forward to rescheduling her because she's just fascinating, seriously
Mhm.
fascinating. Tomorrow night, we welcome for the very first time author Mary Joyce, who's going to be discussing her latest book, Spy in the Skies. It sounds so
Ooh.
intriguing. But it essentially talks about secrets, ad cover-ups, and things like that that she's discovered on Google Earth. Like, she has seen all kinds of stuff. So I'm thinking, well, I'm dying to see what she's going to have to say about it.
Oh,
So
kind of scared, but I'm
I,
excited.
I know, it sounds really amazing. So as you can see, scrolling at the bottom of the page, like, subscribe, all of that fun stuff. Follow. We
Share.
appreciate you all so very much. And don't forget, of course, to tune in on Roku, people. Tune in on Roku. So big thank you to Folgers Coffee. Big thank you to Dr. Snick, Justin Snicker. Big thank you to Steve McGinnis. We appreciate you all very much. And share. Darn it, I'm going to add that share word right to the freaking banner, right? Like as soon as we're done, Tamara. Share. Share. Yes, that's right. Anyway, guys, thank you. Good night, and we'll see you tomorrow. We appreciate you all very much. Good night.